In this video, I'll be taking a look at the Play Arts Kai Final Fantasy VII Remake figures. These are all the ones that I have right now. Recently got the new one, the Jessie, that just came out. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to take a look at the rest of the figures that I have and give my opinion on them, give my opinion on the new one. So first off, I'm taking a look at Cloud here. I'm not looking at these in a particular order, I'm just kind of grabbing them, but I'm starting with the main character. First thing I want to show is the amount of accessories he comes with. Has enough accessories that I can fit in this tiny bag. So that's all he comes with, just different hands and a part that goes into his back so you can hook the sword on there, and that's it. So no alternate heads, no alternate hair pieces, no alternate faces, which I guess does make sense. I mean, he's not really an expressive character in the original game or in the remake. But it still seems like for the price, they could have done better on the figure itself if they weren't going to include extra heads and stuff like that. Especially on the face. Now this face is good and probably one of the better faces out of the whole line. That's the thing that's going to come up later is I would say it's an inconsistency in the faces. This face is okay, maybe they could have made it a bit more realistic, but I think it's pretty good. And also the design of his costume and all the different parts. He's got a little bit of shading on his muscles. So I think the overall design and the feel of the figure is good. He also comes with his Buster Sword, which is almost as big as the figure, which is of course accurate. And this figure is like about 9 inches. Go ahead and show you a quick comparison. Here's G.I. Joe, the Amazon exclusive Roadblock, with some added stuff on him from Gridiron. As you can see, he's a little bit past the halfway point on the figure, just like barely over the halfway mark on the figure. So these Play Arts Kai figures are like 9 inches, around there, depending on the character. It is a weird scale because it's so out of place, especially in my collection. I don't have any other thing that's within the same scale. So in my collection, they really stick out and tower over all of my other figures. And also getting the figure to stand is kind of hard. The ankle joints aren't the strongest. They're not as strong as they should be. So sometimes just a neutral pose, standing him there, is relatively easy, but getting him in more like action poses is sometimes harder, because adding the weight of the sword on it adds more weight, but it's not too bad. It could be worse, and they probably will get worse over time. Besides all the negatives, I think the figure just looks cool. Our next figure we'll take a look at, Tifa. So what I was saying earlier about the faces is that this face is not that good, especially compared to the promotional images when the figure was first coming out. That looked a lot better. They could have done a lot better. Some people have repainted the face. I'm planning on doing that sometime in the future. She does come with a neutral face. This is her more angry face. She does have 3 different hairs, different hair sculpts. So you get a decent amount of options to display. She doesn't have any weapons. She doesn't use any weapons. She punches. In terms of the design and the sculpt, this is one of the better figures. The only drawback is, of course, the face, but the repaint really makes the face look better. So, and again, no issues with the articulation. Moving on to the next one, let's take a look at Aerith, the second favorite character in the game, and personally my favorite female character in the game, Aerith. I think she's better than Tifa. And yes, I did cry when she died. But again, the same problem. The face isn't as good as it could be. I think it could be a lot better. And same thing as before. Some people have repainted this face also and made it look better. And I also plan on doing that as well. She comes with her staff. She only has one other face. No different hair options or anything like that. The articulation is the same as the rest. The only thing is that the leg articulation is hindered a lot by the plastic dress. One thing I kind of wish I could do is replace this plastic dress with an actual cloth dress. I think that would make the figure 10 times better, especially with the repainted face. But we'll see. I don't really know how to do that. That'll make this figure like 10 out of 10. Something I really don't like about the figure is the elbows. The kind of joint that it has is not good, and I don't think it's going to hold up over time. The swivel at the top of the elbow, you can see the elbow joint is turning inside right there, and that's not good because that stretches this part of the elbow up there, and as you can see, it's already starting to like flare out a little bit on the sides. So that's an issue I see getting worse over time, because there's a lot of free room in there that this joint kind of floats in. It should be, the entire joint here should be swiveling from the top, right? And I hope that makes sense. You know, you can see right there the whole thing is turning, but then when you turn down here, the elbow inside, whatever, I don't know, man. You can tell, you know what I'm talking about. The sculpt is good, the shading on the dress is good. Next figure. Next we have Red 13. It's kind of like a dog creature, animal thing. I think he has an interesting design. And also the way the figure is made is also interesting. Also the face is pretty good. You can bring the top part of his mouth up to make it look like he's snarling. Then you can also open his mouth. So that's a cool feature. The sculpt is really good, especially on his hair. It's kind of sharp, so you have to be careful with that. Also, his fin on his spine. And the way they designed this is kind of interesting. They have like a crevice in the back that the fin moves through, so you can get more articulation. Here you see the bottom part of it, which is good for sitting poses and things like that, and you can look up. And also, if you remove the top part of his head, you can also articulate the eye. So he only has one eye, but you can move it around. That's cool. You don't have to worry about lining up the eyes. We have like a figure that has articulated eyes. You gotta make sure both eyes are lined up. But he just has one eye, so that's. And also, when you're putting that part back on, you have to be careful you're not pushing down on the feathers here or his hair, because that could definitely break if you're putting too much pressure on that. He also has his fire tail, which is also nicely done. So, but overall, this figure is one of the better figures. Obviously, he's shorter because he's an animal, but he still looks good next to the rest of the characters. The tail is bendy, so does have some amount of posability, not a whole lot. So here he is next to Barret. Alright, but now we'll get into the next one, which is Barret, and he's already here. And also, Red 13 comes with no accessories and no alternate parts, so, which I guess is fine because you can get different expressions from his face already with the mouth moving and the eye moving. But now we'll take a look at the next figure, which is Barret. I'm sure you've noticed already it is hard to film these figures because they're so big and I don't have a big filming space, but I'm trying to show off the important parts. So I think this one's really good. I think it's canon. You can rotate it. The details on it are good. They even have the materia here. Now I wish all the figures had like materia on it. I think that would be a lot cooler, or pieces of materia that you could like swap out and stuff. But unfortunately they don't have that. Like for example, there's no materia for Cloud's sword. Normally it would go there in those two holes. Like they could have included that. They did give Aerith materia on her staff. It's kind of inconsistent. Tifa also has the materia on her wrist here, and even Red 13 had it on his collar. Also, the sizes of the materia is inconsistent. It's not always the same size, so I don't know what's up with that. Maybe it's like different. Like they can break it down into smaller pieces. Sometimes it's like big, sometimes it's small. So I don't know why that is, but they should have included that with, you know, with every figure. But the details are really nice. On Barret, he's got a soft rubber jacket, and the head sculpt is good. He does come with an alternate head sculpt without his glasses, and he comes with an extra pair of glasses so that he can hold in his hand. He comes with a few different hands, no different weapons for his cannon arm. He did have different cannons in the game, but I didn't like those designs anyways. I liked the regular chain gun design, so that's cool. And the sculpt of the pants is also good. He's got pockets, which do hinder the articulation of the legs, so he doesn't do the splits very far. And he's probably got one of the tightest joints, leg joints, and he doesn't kick very far either. His double knees, they work, and again his ankle joints could be a little bit stronger. His ankle joints aren't really that strong, which he needs it the most because he's the heaviest character. He's the heaviest character out of the whole line. So standing him up, he will fall. When setting him up, you really need the stands, which they come with stands, but they're not the best stands. They actually suck. I'd prefer if they came with a different stand, or they just had a stand that had pegs on it that they could plug into the feet or something. The joints there, which is helpful, but just to set up with the 3 points of articulation. So that swivels, that swivels, that swivels, this rotates. But in order to hold the figure, you got to pose it like this. So this is taking up space, and so then it's hard to have multiple figures with the stands next to each other because they're taking up space. So you can try to display them without the stands, but then you run into problems where like the ankle joints are not strong enough to support the figure. There's different solutions to that problem. And also, I don't like this tattoo. This is a pretty lame tattoo design, and it's different than the original. The original was a skull that was on fire. This is like it's like a more stylized kind of skull, I guess, but it looks worse. I mean, a skull on fire is already a pretty lame design, but I think this is not an improvement. So that's Barret. Right, next up we got the main bad guy, and he's got a cool giant sword. He's also another pretty well made figure. But this is all a softer plastic, so it does get out of the way, and it's segmented here so it doesn't hinder articulation. He comes with a lot of different hands. He comes with a alternate head sculpt where his eyes are closed, you know, he's taking a nap. He holds the sword really well, maybe a little bit too well sometimes. Like he has a really tight grip on the sword, so just like Cloud, you have to be careful when you're taking the sword out and putting the sword in. His shoulder armor does kind of hinder the articulation, the shoulder articulation, so you have to be careful. Also, sometimes when you articulate the leg, the bottom of his trench coat will stick out like that, and that's because this flap, this section, is overlapping the back section, so you just have to. So he has some really good details on his jacket, his belt here, and all the straps, all the different buckles. They're all painted and sculpted nicely. His hair is obviously very shiny, so that's accurate to the remake, I guess. One thing I don't really like is that it looks like he has lipstick on, which is accurate to the remake, but in the original game and in his original design for the original game, he didn't have that, so this looks kind of weird. So that is weird. I don't like it.